Water quality management is the usage of a set of technical and non-technical measures to improve and maintain water quality in fish farming. Our discussion today focuses on water quality. My name is Enyonam and this is the Ghanaian Farmer. Get interactive on all our social media platforms on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, the Ghanaian Farmer. Coming up is a video detailing on water quality management in fish farming. I'll be right back after this.
Successful aquaculture depends on healthy fish and proper water quality management. Poor water quality reduces growth and affects health of fish. Fish diseases usually occur after stress from impaired water quality. Water quality problems may develop suddenly from environmental phenomena, heavy rains, pond overturn, or gradually through mismanagement. Water quality management is very important if water is limited and runoff or other surface water is the principal source of water for aquaculture. For fish to maintain an optimal level of health, avoid stress or disease, then the quality of the water must be monitored and controlled 24/7.
Thanks for staying with us. My name is Enyonam and this is the Ghanaian Farmer. Standing next to me is David Owusu. He is the hatchery supervisor in Flow Cell Farms here in the Volta region. David, thanks for joining me. Now, briefly, when we say water quality management, what are we referring to?
Oh, okay. So simply put, when we talk about water quality management, we are talking about the safe conditions in which you can farm fish. Right? It is not necessarily for the consumption by human beings, right? So whenever you see the water green, it doesn't mean that it's not safe for the fish to thrive in. So that's simply put the safe conditions in which the fish can thrive in for farming.
Why is water quality management important in fish farming?
All right, so as I said earlier, water quality is important for three main reasons that I will explain. The first one is that with matters concerning water qualities, if you go contrary to it, there are no midways. Whether being its advantage or disadvantage, its effect is really severe. Let's take an example. Let's say one night your security forgets to put on your oxygen pumps. You come up in the morning and boom, half, if not all of your fish are gone. Let's say there is a heavy rain coupled with thunder and storms. You come up in the morning and then the algae in your ponds are dead and the nitrite shoots up and then boom, within 24 hours, if you don't do anything about it, almost half or all of your stocks are gone. And then this water quality parameters, unlike the other two that I mentioned earlier, can have influence on the other twos. What do I mean by this? If you don't take care of your water really well, we will have other secondary factors that comes in, being it diseases that will affect your fish and cause great loss to your farm.
Okay, what are some of the indicators to observe water quality management?
All right, so with water quality parameters, it's a lot, but there are some important ones that I wish every farm should take note of. The first one is oxygen, right? Yes, oxygen is very, very important when it comes to fish farming, right? What happens is that during or after feeding, it is this oxygen that is required to break down the feed that will help your fish to grow, right? And then because in fish farming you are stocking so much, right, you need to supplement in your pond oxygen so that the population in your pond, all of them will get enough oxygen. Otherwise, they will compete for it. And then if oxygen is low, most of them will die. Okay. Then we have other forms too, like temperature, which with that, it's not within your controls, right? But the most important thing is that whenever there is a change in any weather conditions, it is very paramount for you to check the temperature before you feed, right? Because if the temperature is really low or really high, then it means the fish are already stressed up with the temperature. And then if you go ahead and feed, or if you go ahead and handle them, you would have a lot of mortalities and you will lose a lot.
How can water quality be controlled in a fish farm?
Okay, so as I said, we have some of them that can be controlled, right? An example is the oxygen, right? With the oxygen, you can install blowers. These are just natural air, right? But due to the chemical reaction that's between the water and the atmospheric oxygen, it traps the oxygen constituent in the atmospheric air, and then it gives your population or your stock enough oxygen to thrive.
Okay.
Right? And then, let's say if you come and then your nitrite levels have shoot up, what you are supposed to do is to lower your water about 25% of it, right? And you top it up with new water.
Okay.
All right. There are another additive that is really common, and then everybody can reach it.
Okay.
That is salt, right? Once you come and then your nitrite level has shoot up, you can add a concentrated amount of salt.
The salt, is it the adhering one, the big ones that
you
we
can
eat?
use the adhering one, but
Okay.
it needs to be dissolved.
Into
right?
water?
Yes, in your pond.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it needs to be dissolved in your pond. Yes, then you can be well off.
Okay. Yes. What impact does water quality have on the growth of my fish?
All right. So as I said earlier, let's take respiration. We are saying that respiration is the breakdown of food, right? And it requires oxygen as far as your fish is concerned. So you can be you throwing in feed does not necessarily mean that your fish are going to grow, right? Once the oxygen level in your pond is low, you can throw in as much as feed as you want, but yes, still you are not going to get the required growth rate, right? Once there are enough oxygen in your pond, then even with supplement feed, you realize that your fish will be able to grow and grow really well.
Now, with regards to oxygen in ponds during fish farming or for fish farming, does it also apply to those who are doing their fishes in the water lake itself?
Okay, so what happens is that with ponds, the reason why you realize that there are diffusers inside and you need blowers and all that, and then in the main river you don't see that, is really because of water exchange, right? In the main river, you realize that at every second, water is being moved out of your cage, and then fresh water is being installed or is being put up.
Okay.
And when it happens like that, they don't use the same oxygen from the same water for a continuous time, as you can see in ponds, right? So in that case, with cages, you wouldn't see anything like blowers or diffusers in your cages.
Okay, when it comes to water quality management processes or practices, does it apply to commercial farmers, or it applies to both commercial farmers and small scale or peasant farmers?
Okay, so what happens is that water quality is not a thing for only commercial farmers.
Okay.
It's a thing for everybody who is growing fish. Either you are growing only 50,000 fish or you are growing tons of fish. You need to take really good look at your water quality, right? Simply because you are throwing in feed.
Okay.
And once you are throwing in feed in your pond, then you are changing the entire chemistry of your water,
Okay.
right? You are changing the entire structure of your ecosystem. And in that sense, if you don't check or regularly check your water quality parameters, some of them will shoot up by all means because you are throwing in feed, right? And then you will get problems.
Okay. So in that case, how often in a month or weeks or year do I check my water quality?
Okay. So it is very, very important to check your water quality, especially before feeding.
Okay.
Before feeding, before handling. And with this handling, I mean transfers, I mean grading, I mean sampling.
Okay.
Before you do all
Before
these
I
activities,
feed?
before you feed, before you sample,
Okay.
before you do any transfer or transportation of your fish from one pond or one cage to the other, you need to check your water quality.
Okay.
You have to find out whether your temperature is in good shape. You have to find out if your oxygen is okay, your nitrite levels are okay, your ammonia levels are fine before you go ahead and handle your fish,
Okay.
right? Because whatever happens, if you don't, the fish are already stressed. So if you do any activity again with the fish, after the activity or 2-3 days afterwards, you are going to get a lot of mortalities.
Okay.
A lot of mortality, and you will lose a lot.
Again, does this water quality management only apply to fish farmers or catfish farmers as well?
Okay, so it applies to all fish farmers.
Okay.
Being it catfish or tilapia.
Okay.
But with it's a matter of concentrations, right? The concentration or the level of water quality that is needed for catfish will be different from the level of water quality that is needed for tilapia and other organisms and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So with catfish, you realize that they have adaptation to stay in really anoxic conditions, right? They can thrive in areas where the oxygen is really low, and then they can still survive. If you've seen a catfish pond before, you realize that it's really green, very, very green. The phytoplanktons have shoot up, but still they'll be fine.
Okay.
They are okay with that, right? But it's not the same as to other farming organisms like tilapia. If you use the same conditions for them, you will lose a lot. Yes.
They will die. At what time in the morning do I check my water quality before I feed?
Okay. So usually, usually tilapia feeds in response to rising of your sun.
Okay.
Right. Once you have high temperature, once the temperature is okay, right, then all other metabolic activities are in place. Then once you are feeding, you are sure that they are going to assimilate it really well. Okay. Compared to when conditions are, say, temperature is really low, whether it's cloudy, it's about to rain, they wouldn't even feed. Their response will be really low. Okay. So once you are throwing in feed, you are wasting your feed, and then you know that the feed constitutes about 70% of your total cost.
Yes.
Yes. You have problems.
Who is responsible for checking my water quality in my fish farm? Can the farmer do it on his own, or he needs an expert to take care of that? Okay.
So there are some of the water quality parameters that a farmer can do on his own without even instruments. Okay. Let's say if you want to check the turbidity of your water, that is how clear your water is. Whether you are supposed to change it or you are not supposed to change it. Every farmer can do that by dipping their hand in the water to their elbow area, right? And then once you can see the cuts in your palm, then it means your water is good enough to thrive, especially for tilapia. Okay. But if you can't see your palm, then it means your water is turbid, and then you need to change it. Okay. And then with the changing, you don't need to pour all your water away from your fish. No, you reduce it about 25% or 50%, then you refill it. Okay. And then you can do that 2 to 3 times a day, so that you know that right now you have almost a fresh water in your pond.
An insightful conversation with David Owusu, the hatchery supervisor in Flow Cell Farms here in the Volta region. So David, we'll be moving to the pond, so you can do the demonstration one after the other, how I can do my water, quality management. But tell me, what are the instruments you have here?
All right. So let me first start with this one. This one is called Sekidex.
Please lift it for my viewers.
Sekidex. Okay. It's called Sekidex, and it's used to check for the turbidity of your water. That's how clear your water is. All right. Right. Okay. This is the instrument that is used to check your oxygen levels, right? And as you can see, this is the handy Polaris, right? It's used to check the oxygen measurement in your ponds. And this is a 6 easy strips that is used to check some other parameters like nitrite, nitrate, ammonia, pH, and all that. This one, we imported it. Okay. So if you want some, you can contact us, and then we will get you some.
You sell some?
Yes.
Okay. So viewers, now we are moving closer to the pond, so that David will take us through the step-by-step ways of checking your water quality management. However, we caught up with another fish farmer to find out on how regular he does his water quality management, even whether or not he has a fair idea of how important it is as a fish farmer to check your water quality management. And this is what he has to say.
Yeah, I know about water quality management. We don't do it here because I don't have the equipment that I use in taking and doing tests on all this. To check that when you get closer to the ponds and then you look at your fish, when you realize that they come up and then they peep, when they come up and then they start to open their mouth, then you realize there's a problem. Either you are coming to feed or there's oxygen problem in the water.
If you're just tuning in, you're watching The Ghanaian Farmer, and our focus today is on water quality management. So standing next to me is David Owusu, the hatching supervisor here in Flow Cell Farm. So David,
Yeah.
you are going to take us through one by one how to do the water quality management testing. So please, what do we do first? If I should come to my farm and I have my instruments, what do I do? What do I start from?
Okay. So as you can see the water green like this, you don't just change it because you feel like changing it. You change it based on measurements, right? So let's say you don't have any instruments, you want to check whether this water is clear enough or it's not clear for you to change it. You can do the hand dip method. You dip your hand to your elbow, then you look in your palms if you can see the cut. So as you can see with this one, I can see the cuts in my palm, so it means that the water is clear enough. It doesn't need to be changed. Okay. Right? Okay. And then there is this instrument, we call it the Sekidix, as I mentioned earlier on. And then these tapes are measurements, right? Okay. From the base to every tape like this is 10 centimeters. Okay. So from here to here, 10, from here to here, 10, upwards like that. Okay. And then you have to dip it 30 centimeters into the water to see whether you can still see your black and white discs. Ah, so you're looking out for this? This, yes, this black and white, just as you were looking out for the cuts in your palm. Okay. So you dip it 30 centimeters like that. And then if you can still see the black and white, then it means that your water does not need any change. Okay. Just as you can see right now, it doesn't need to be changed. Okay. Even though you think it's green, it doesn't need to be changed. Okay. But if you dip it and then you realize that you can't see the black and white or the cuts in your palm, then it means your water is so green that you have to change it. Okay. Now, why do you have to change it? If you don't change it, what will happen? Now, what happens is that this causes an increase in your pH, right? And then, as I said earlier, pH, if it goes high, out of norm, usually the normal one should be between 6.5 and 9. If it goes off, very basic. If it goes very down, very acidic, and you can have very, you can lose most of your fish. So that is the reason why if your water is greens up so much, you have to change it. Okay. Yes. All right, that's fine. So that is with the Sekidex. Okay. Okay. And then what do I do next? So let's say before you feed, right? You have to put in, this is an oxygen meter, right? You have to put in this oxygen meter to find out the amount of oxygen in your pond. Usually the required reading should be not less than 3 milligram per liter, right? If you have anything less than 3 milligram, don't feed, do not feed, because the fish, there's less oxygen in your pond, and then they are really competing for the less oxygen in your pond. And you know that digestion requires a lot of oxygen to break down the food. And then if it happens like that, then it means you are stressing your fish out of norm, and then they will die. Right? Right after the feeding. Okay. So let's try it. You put the sensor, there is a sensor here, right, that records the level of oxygen in your water, the dissolved oxygen. So you put the sensor in, and then you on the machine. You on your diometer. And then as you can see, this one reads it's 6 point. Yes, it's reading. Right. So we have nothing less than 3. Okay. Right. So this should tell you that the oxygen in your water is good enough. You can feed, you wouldn't have any problem. You can handle your fish, you wouldn't have any problem. Other than that, if you do it, the next 2-3 days, you come and you have severe mortality in your pond, and you wouldn't understand why. You get it? Okay. All right. All right. And then with the last one, we have some 6-way stripes that we use. This is why I said we sell it here, so anyone who wants some can contact us, and then we can get them some. So this 6 stripes, it measures, 1, the nitrate I think if you can show it to the camera. It measures the nitrate, it measures the nitrite, the total hardness, the chlorine, alkalinity, and then the pH. Right? So what happens is that you pick one of this, you dip it in your water, and then you remove it as quickly as possible so that you don't stain your stripe. So you put it in, then you remove it, right?
Okay, just a second.
Just a second, yes. There is a bit of water on top of all the indicators. And then this is the finger level, so you put it here. Right? And then you wait for, let's say, some 10, 20 seconds, and then you can compare with the colorations, right? So let's look at the pH like this. Now, which color can you compare to from here? You realize that this one is almost deep orange, so it's 6.8. So it means it's safe. Yes, it's safe. Right? You can handle your fish, you can sample, you can do whatever. Your fish will be fine. You don't have
any mortality.
Yes. You can compare with the alkalinity. You realize that the alkalinity is almost is low. Yes. This one. Yes. So you're okay with that one too, and so on and so forth.
So you check per the colorations
and
what is written
and
over
what
there.
is written on it.
And
then you know whether it is safe or it's not safe. If it's not safe, there are other measures that you can use or you can put in place, and then you'll be fine before you attempt to handle your fish. Other than that, if you don't put in those measurements, don't even touch your fish. Don't do anything to them. Yes. And then these parameters within 24 hours, if you don't do anything at all, you will start to get a lot of mortalities. As I told you, there is no midways as it comes to water quality parameters. There are no midways. The damages are really severe or not at all.
All right.
You get it.
So there you have it, David Owusus, hatchery supervisor here in Flow Cell Farms in the Volta region. And he is a scientist that helps and ensure that everything falls in place. And so after this, we'd also visited an expert to talk to them about what is the mortality rate in fish farms with regards to the lack of such services or such regulations being adhered to. We also find out the history of fish farming around the Volta Lake, and of course, some of the common challenges that the fishermen or fish folks or fish farmers in this part of the region go through. And that's what he has to say.
Yes, when you talk about best practices, it starts with the siting of the farm. Basically, when you are starting, you should have foreknowledge about the water you are going to introduce your fish in. So, of course, if they're flowing water, then you want to know whether there are some activities going upstream, whether poultry, industrial activities. That can, of course, be a major challenge as long as you are operating. So once you know the source of water, then of course you are minimizing most of this bacteria, introduction of bacteria. And then the next thing is, whilst you are done, you want to look at the quality of your fish. So then if it's larvae, fingerlings, or juveniles, of course, you are introducing, you should be sure that you are obtaining it from a certified farm, farms with no record of giving out a diseased fish. And then the next step will also be to know the quality of your water. As you told, the quality of water is a major input. So you should know you should be monitoring your water on a regular basis to be sure that there is no buildup of pathogen. And if there is, then you can of course take in the necessary measures to reduce them. Then there's this key thing about disinfection. There's the need to disinfect all your equipment used to handle the fish, disinfection of workers, being in appropriate clothes, limiting visitors onto your farms, or even when you do receive visitors, they should be in appropriate clothes before coming close to your farm. So there are lots of measures. The main thing is to reduce the introduction of bacteria, because once they set hold, treatments can be very difficult. So once they take hold of the system, they become established in the system, it's very difficult to eradicate. And in these times, we are not promoting the use of antibiotics. So the rule of thumb is prevents the introduction of the bacteria into your system. With Ghana, I would say it's really not the best. It's quite poor. We wouldn't put it more than 20% of farmers really working with experts, because then I know there's only those who are operating on large scales that we actually met fish health experts actually employed from outside, who were actually based on their farm. They were as one of their staff that were consulting for them on regular basis, helping them with the management of the fish on daily basis. So they were also workers on the farm. But those are just a few farms. As I said, not more than 20% of farms are having experts on their farm. And of course, if not having an expert on your farm, you could be consulting the experts within the system. But unfortunately, the farmers are not aware that we have a lot of fish health experts in our system, and so they really do not know whom to call on when they have these challenges. We are trying to map out all the farmers within our system, but then the point, our institute has raised up and talk about water research institutes. Our major work is assisting farms, setting up, helping out, guiding them with the feed, water quality, health management. That's the basic thing that we do. So of course, from time to time, we put in those flyers, we call, and people do register. Some farmers do register and then come for this training. But the whole issue about fish health management has also more to do with the farmer himself, because then you are putting in much money, so you have to seek for the services of experts who can assist you, because as I said, once you are operating on intensive scale, then fish disease is something to expect. So if you have full knowledge about that, then you are working towards getting an expert who will be assisting you to operate in such a way that you will not have major disease outbreak. In actual fact, way before 2015, we didn't have much of these infections, just local strains of the pathogens. But most of them, I would say, are from the exotic species. They were introduced into the system from imported fish. Here is the case, there's actually a ban, the restrictions on importing fish into the system. But then most farmers do not really understand why scientists are putting emphasis on not smuggling in fish. The main thing has to do with diseases. Because when you are introducing new fish and you are not following laid down protocols, necessary quarantine measures and all that, then you are as well introducing foreign pathogens into the system. So the streptococcus and ISKIMV were all introduced from outside the country, imported fish actually.
Thank you so much for making time with me. My name is Enyinam, and this is Ghanaian Farmer. If you missed it on Joy Prime Television, make sure to catch up on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.